from 1979 and the other from 1984. At a glance, they are twins, but tip them onto a hard surface and the illusion shatters. The older penny rings out, bright and clear, like a tiny bell. The newer one lands with a flat, heavy thud. That difference is not just in your ears, it is in the metal. Every penny made before 1982 carries a hidden core of copper, dense and resonant. Pennies made after 1982 are nearly all zinc under a whisper-thin copper shell, and they swallow the sound. Flip them over and the date stamp tells the story. Before 1982, pennies echo with copper's signature tone. After 1982, the sound dulls, zinc taking center stage. The change is so subtle that most people never notice. But the evidence is right there in your hand, and in the simple sound test that reveals what is really inside. Two coins, the same size, the same face, but on the inside, a world apart. That is not just pocket change, it is a clue to something far bigger, waiting in plain sight. Scratch the surface of a penny, and the truth comes out. Underneath that thin copper coat, coins minted after 1982 reveal a silvery core, almost pure zinc, 97.5% by weight. Coins minted before 1982 are 95% copper with just a touch of zinc added for strength. The United States Mint made the switch in 1982, quietly phasing out copper as prices rose. On paper, it was just economics. In your hand, it is a chemistry lesson disguised as spare change. Sand a copper penny until the metal shows. Sand a zinc penny the same way, and you have the two metals that power the world's simplest battery. The difference is not just academic. When these metals meet moisture, they react. A tiny electrical pulse forms, enough to trigger something in the soil. Most people never see it. But every penny minted after 1982 is a zinc time capsule, wrapped in copper, waiting for someone to connect the dots. The formula is right there in the open. One coin for copper, one for zinc. The system changed the metal, but left the secret hiding in plain sight. Justin Christofleau stood at the crossroads of old-world farming and the electric age. Born in 1865, he was no fringe tinkerer. His name appeared on patents from Paris to Geneva, and by the 1920s he was recognized as a gold medalist by the French National Society of Agriculture. In a time when most inventors chased steam or gasoline, Christofleau turned his focus to the invisible power in the air and the soil. He believed that nature's own electricity, if harnessed, could feed nations. His answer was the electromagnetic tarot-celestial device. The design was simple but precise, a zinc basin shaped like a shallow bowl mounted atop a wooden pole. Above it sat a flat copper plate positioned to catch the faintest traces of atmospheric energy. The two metals were not chosen at random. Zinc and copper, when paired in damp earth, create a natural battery, a galvanic cell that produces a steady trickle of current. Christofleau's patent ch-Willuminate 648A, filed in Switzerland in 1927, outlined every detail. The zinc bowl, acting as the anode, the copper plate as the cathode, and the pole elevating the assembly to draw on both terrestrial and celestial forces. He did not just sketch out ideas in a notebook. Christofleau built prototypes, tested them in his own fields, and published the results in agricultural journals. His workshops turned out devices by the thousands, each stamped with his name. Farmers from France to Belgium lined up for a chance to try this new approach. By the late 1930s, over 150,000 units had been sold across Europe. The device did not require wires, batteries, or chemicals, just the right metals, the right placement, and the patience to let nature do its work. Christofleau's reputation grew alongside his invention. He lectured at universities, won medals at agricultural expositions, and earned the respect of both engineers and traditional growers. To skeptics, he offered not just theories, but blueprints and public demonstrations. In a world hungry for solutions, Christofleau promised a harvest powered by the earth itself, with nothing more than a bowl of zinc and a plate of copper catching the silent energies that surround every field. In 1927, Justin Christofleau put his claims to the test, publishing yield tables that read like something out of science. The numbers were printed right on a Swiss patent CH118648A. Oat fields produced 200% more grain than control plots. Potatoes yielded 30 to 35 tubers per plant, where farmers expected just 5 or 6. Beans tripled their output even during drought. These were not quiet garden experiments. Christofleau's results made headlines in French agricultural journals, drawing crowds to his public demonstrations. The promise was simple: no chemicals, no wires, just a zinc basin and a copper plate working with the weather and the soil. The farming world took notice. Orders for Christofleau's devices poured in from across Europe. By the late 1930s, more than 150,000 units had been sold, a figure that dwarfed most agricultural inventions of the era. Factories in France and Belgium ran at full tilt, stamping his name onto every bowl and plate. Testimonials flooded in from growers who swore their fields had never looked better. Some even reported vegetables so large they had to be harvested with 2 hands. The device was licensed abroad with offers from Germany and Italy to buy the rights outright. But as quickly as this new technology spread, its trail faded. The records show a surge of sales, a wave of excitement, and then a sudden drop-off. Christofleau's name, once a fixture in agricultural circles, began to disappear from the headlines. The patent tables, once cause for celebration, became little more than footnotes in garden history. Devices that had promised a revolution were quietly packed away in barns and sheds, their copper and zinc left to tarnish in the dark. The data, the sales, the public trials, all pointed to a breakthrough. Yet the technology itself seemed to vanish, leaving only the numbers behind, and a mystery that would haunt the next generation of growers. In 1918, as Europe struggled to rebuild after the war, Britain formed a committee unlike any other. The British Electrocultural Committee brought together some of the sharpest minds of the era: physicists, biologists, electrical engineers, and even Nobel laureates. Their mission was clear: to test whether electricity could transform agriculture. Over nearly 2 decades, the committee ran trials on fields and in greenhouses, swapping out chemicals for simple metal plates, copper and zinc, buried in the soil. Their interim reports described the results as nothing short of baffling. Wheat sprouted faster. Root crops bulked up. In some years, yields jumped by margins that could not be explained by weather or seed alone. One report promised substantial gains and urged further study. The committee's credentials gave the work weight. These were not backyard tinkerers, they were fellows of the Royal Society, government scientists, and university professors, all reporting to the Ministry of Agriculture. Their findings filtered through official channels, hinting at a breakthrough that could change how food was grown across the empire. For a time, it looked as if electroculture might move from laboratory curiosity to national policy. The expectation was that once the data was in, the results would be published and shared with farmers everywhere. Instead, as the experiments piled up and the evidence grew harder to ignore, the committee's work began to recede from public view. The story of those trials and the fate of their reports would soon take a very different turn. This is where the record goes hidden, and the silence becomes part of the story. A single stamp in red ink, not for publication, locked away the committee's findings. The final volumes, packed with years of crop trial data and correspondence, vanished into government archives. Only 2 copies are known to have survived. The rest were pulled from circulation, boxed up, and forgotten. In 1936, the British Electrocultural Committee was dissolved, without fanfare. The official reason was shifting priorities and the need for more practical solutions. But the timing was no accident. That same year, the Haber-Bosch process swept across Europe, turning air into synthetic fertilizer by the ton. Chemical plants sprang up, promising endless harvests for a price. The market for ammonia-based fertilizers exploded, drawing in government contracts and private capital. For the first time, food production could be scaled up with bags of powder, measured, predictable, and profitable. The committee's experiments with simple metals in the soil threatened that new order. A free technique, powered by nothing but weather and scrap metal, had no place in the business model of industrial agriculture. The reports, stamped and sealed, became casualties of an economic revolution. The question lingers: were the results buried because they failed or because they succeeded too well? The answer remains locked in a vault, hidden behind a stamp and a shifting tide of money. Electricity in the soil isn't just a party trick. When copper and zinc meet in damp earth, they spark a reaction as old as the first battery. The difference in their atomic makeup drives electrons from zinc to copper, creating a steady current, typically approximately 1.1 volts. It is not enough to light a bulb, but it is plenty for a plant. This is not speculation, it is basic electrochemistry, the same principle that powered Alexander Bain's Earth battery in 1841, and it runs every AA cell in your kitchen drawer. What happens next is pure biology. Roots sense and respond to electric fields, a phenomenon called electrotropism. When a small voltage runs through the soil, roots will actually grow toward the cathode, seeking out the source of the current. This subtle nudge guides root tips to water and nutrients they might otherwise miss. In controlled experiments, plants exposed to low-level currents show stronger, denser root systems and sometimes faster growth above ground. But the story does not end with electricity. As the zinc corrodes, it slowly releases zinc ions into the soil. Plants need zinc to manufacture tryptophan, the amino acid at the heart of auxin synthesis. Auxins are the hormones that tell plants when and how to grow, stretching stems, swelling fruit, and branching roots. Without enough zinc, this pathway stalls. With it, growth surges. Recent fieldwork backs up the old claims. In 2018, researchers in China reported that adding low-voltage galvanic cells, copper and zinc plates in moist fields, boosted crop yields by 20 to 30%. The plants were not just bigger, they were healthier, with more vigorous root systems and higher resistance to stress. The numbers echo the wild results from Christofleau's day, now measured with modern instruments instead of garden folklore. The mechanism is simple: 2 metals, a little moisture, and a current that feeds both roots and biochemistry. The penny trick is not just a myth, it is a living, testable hypothesis, grounded in physics and plant science, waiting for anyone with a handful of coins and a patch of soil. Start with 2 coins in your palm, 1 copper and 1 zinc. That is all you need to build the simple electroculture system. The materials list is short. A penny from before 1982, a penny from after 1982, a scrap of sandpaper, and a small length of copper wire. If you want to try the second method, no batteries, no chemicals, no gadgets, just metal, dirt, and water. First, clean both pennies with sandpaper. You want bare metal exposed, copper shining on one, the silver gray of zinc on the other. This removes the protective coating and lets the soil do its work. For the ring method, dig a small hole on either side of your plant's root zone. Place the copper penny on one side and the zinc penny on the other, about 4 inches apart. The spacing matters: close enough for the current to travel through the root ball, and far enough apart to avoid direct contact. Cover with soil, water as usual, and let the natural battery form. Underground. For the wire method, wrap a length of copper wire tightly around a zinc penny. Twist the ends so the copper makes firm contact with the zinc. Bury this assembly near the roots, copper side facing up if possible. The wire increases surface area, boosting the electrical connection. In both setups, moisture is essential. The system will not work in dry dirt. 1 set per plant is enough, more is not better, and too much zinc can harm roots over time. These methods draw on basic horticultural spacing. Pennies or assemblies should sit where feeder roots are most active, usually 4 to 6 inches out from the stem. Once installed, there is nothing left to adjust. The coins do their job quietly, day and night, feeding a trickle of current and a slow release of zinc ions directly into the soil. A penny buried in the soil starts working the moment it touches moisture, but the process does not run forever. Like any battery, the voltage drops as the zinc is slowly consumed. That is why careful monitoring matters. Every few weeks, a simple multimeter reading will tell you if your setup is still active. If the voltage falls below 0.5 volts, it is time to swap in a fresh zinc penny. The copper side, unless badly corroded, usually lasts much longer. Too much zinc, though, can push a plant from healthy to stressed. One zinc coin per plant is the upper limit. Doubling up does not double the effect. It just risks overloading the root zone with metal ions. Keep a notebook or a phone log of dates, voltages, and any changes in plant growth. This is not just for curiosity, it is the backbone of real experimentation. If you notice leaves yellowing or roots stalling, check both the voltage and the number of zinc coins in use. Rainfall, irrigation, and soil pH all play a role in how fast the zinc dissolves, so results may vary from garden to garden. Treat each plant as its own trial. Document what you see, swap coins as needed, and avoid the temptation to scale up before you have tracked the outcome. Responsible testing means respecting both the power and the limits of this method. The penny system is simple, but the science behind it deserves a careful, measured approach. That is how new discoveries move from garden myth to proven tool, one plant, one data point at a time. As fertilizer prices surge and food insecurity rises worldwide, forgotten methods like electroculture are being rediscovered, not just by skeptics, but by scientists seeking sustainable answers. The soil beneath our feet holds electric secrets, ignored for decades, and now impossible to dismiss. The real question is no longer what is possible, but who decides which knowledge gets buried. Sometimes the smallest coin can spark the biggest change. Share your thoughts below.